an extension of everything I promised as I started running for office when I was speaking with folks in my district and outside of my district related to education and what makes sense with education and serving kids. The resounding impetus, the resounding comments, the resounding response was, we want our education kept as locally as possible. We don't need regulations telling us to do what's best for these kids. These kids are our children, they're our grandchildren, they're our nieces, nephews, neighbors. This bill is about returning the authority to local school boards, local administrators, and local teachers to make the decisions that make the most sense for their classrooms. This bill has 19 divisions, and we will just dive right in and go through them, and then we will start and we'll go around the room to hear your thoughts. First of all, Senate Study Bill 1190. The first division strikes the requirement, it doesn't prevent school districts from doing it. It strikes the requirement that they use environmentally preferable cleaning products. Sections 2 through 4 deal with striking the requirement that school districts act as the paper pushers for dental screenings for children. Section 5 does the same thing with vision. Sections 6 through 8 do the same thing with blood lead testing. Section 9 eliminates the requirement that schools have a school nurse. Section 10 does a very similar provision about vision care as well, and eliminating that requirement that a school be the administrators for that information and tracking all the documents. Section 11 does that with private instruction and blood lead testing. Section 12 deals with notices for AEAs that they may notify on their websites. Section 13 eliminates the requirement, not the ability to have, the requirement of a teacher librarian. Section 14 deals with school bus drop-off plans. This is duplicative of Section 285.1 and is unnecessary as such. Section 15 deals with the sale of real estate from a school. Section 16 deals with equipment purchases. Section 17 deals with assessments and data access. Section 18 deals with school employee background checks, and Section 19 eliminates the requirement of reporting on an energy audit. This is a basic overview. Once again, we say that we're eliminating the requirements for many reporting issues. We are not eliminating requirements that parents have their children screened and tested. We are not eliminating the opportunity for school districts to act as a collection agency for data for the Department of Public Health if they so choose. We are not telling schools that they may not hire nurses or librarians. We are giving those options back to the school boards where they rightly belong. Anyone who would suggest that a school board is going to make a decision that is contrary to the best interests of the students, the children, and the staff that they have, anyone who would suggest that a school board is going to intentionally make decisions that would harm those folks, you own that statement. I will not. This allows them to make the best decisions possible for the children and families that they serve. That being said, I would like to say, oh, Dave, you're standing up, so you get a start.
Do you mind if Senator has a comment or two first?
I would not mind that at all, because if we come up to 11:30, I want to be able to make sure that you've had your opportunity as well. So yeah. Certainly, Senator Cornwell, you may comment.
Just a question. I have heard that it may be your intention to remove the sections on school nurses and school librarians.
My intention is to pass this bill today, as is.
As is. All right. Then I was misinformed.
Sometimes that happens when we put things on social media that are unnecessary.
Okay. When I started school 60-something years ago, I had perfect vision and my hearing was at least as good. Today, if I walked into a classroom, I couldn't read without glasses, and without my hearing aids, I couldn't hear half the stuff that goes on around here. Come to think of it, that might not be a bad idea.
Maybe you're making the wrong choice.
But it's not a good idea in a first grade classroom or a kindergarten classroom. For kids who can't see or can't hear or may be suffering unknowingly from lead poisoning, those are major obstacles to their education. And it's not only appropriate that we have those requirements in law, but that we have an effective enforcement mechanism to make sure that those requirements are satisfied. I have a lot of questions about this bill, and I'm looking forward to hearing the discussion today.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Bain, would you like to chime in before we get going with comments from the
I'm
crowd?
willing to just entertain the discussion or the comments from around. I don't have any comments per se. I think this eliminates a lot of the rationale behind hiring more administration. Currently, one of the fastest growing sections of spending in education is in the administration, and I think this bill seeks to help that. So I think from that standpoint, this is a good bill, and I want to hear what the comments are.
Now you're going to start, Dave. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Dave Wilkerson with the School Administrators of Iowa, and we've registered as undecided on the bill. And I'll speak from when I was a school superintendent. It was very important for me and the district that I worked in to have a librarian in every school building and to have a nurse in every school building. And there are a variety of reasons for that. Did a lot of research, looked at a lot of the research regarding school librarians and the positive impact they have not only on student achievement in the building, especially in the area of reading, but on the culture and the morale in the building and the supports that they provide to teachers. So there's that. And then as far as school nurses, and I understand that it doesn't mean a district doesn't have to hire these things. I understand that completely. That they're
They still certainly may.
They still certainly may. There are, we have lots of students with significant needs in our buildings. And to not have a medical professional available for that, I think, is a disservice and opens schools up to a certain amount of liability. So some concerns there with that as well. There are many parts of the bill that we're supportive of. Honestly, for the most part, if you remove Section 9, Section 13, and Section 18, I think that the school administrators would be in support of the legislation with the librarians and nurses, and then the asking school employees to pay for their own background checks. We think this is a little bit unnecessary. I know there's others that need to speak, so I'll stop with that.
Is that you behind you, Tom? Is that? Yeah. Let's go on around the room. So,
Tom Cope, here today on behalf of the Iowa Dental Hygienists Association. We have concerns about Section 2, 3, and 4 of the bill, which eliminate the requirement that there's a statewide collection of data related to dental screenings. The dental screenings have been, first of all, we think the dental screenings have been very valuable. Right now, according to the data that's collected, about over 50,000 students have been screened each year. And some of the most recent data showed that 2% or 1,000 of those students needed urgent care. And so if that screening hadn't been done, which helps really identify that something immediate needs to be done and also help that child get access to a dentist, that's really the important role that screen plays. But also the statewide data collection we think is really important to help identify whether there may be public health or oral health issues in a certain area of the state. And so that's why we strongly believe that sections 2, 3, and 4 should be removed from the bill as appointed at the school board.
and so let me just clarify for everyone after they heard Tom, there is no elimination of the screening, there is no elimination of the data collection. It eliminates the school from being the responsible party for that. So please don't confuse what's in the bill and what's being said. There is no elimination of the screening, there is no elimination of the data collection. It eliminates the individual schools from being that collection point. So let's be sure we're sticking with what's in the actual bill as we're making comments. I appreciate the concerns about finding those areas where we may need additional assistance. I don't believe that it's the school's job to be the one to collect that data that still will be collected within the Department of Public Health where it's required to go.
But I don't see in the bill an establishment of a different rubric for data collection. It just eliminates the school.
There is not. It eliminates the school from being the responsible party, and that data then it's the responsibility of the parent or provider to make sure that data gets to the Department of Public Health. We do need to move on. So, and I'm sorry, I like to look at people when they're speaking. So I know you want to catch the comments, but I need to be able to see the people who are speaking. So if we could go on around the room.
Deanne Cook, United Ways of Iowa. We are registered undecided on this bill. We know from our United Way Alice report that looks at the portion of Iowa's population that can't make ends meet, that a third of our kids are being raised in homes where they're struggling to survive every day, every week, every month, every year. A third of Iowa's kids. These screenings are critical to make sure that the kids are ready to see and hear and have oral health and are ready to eliminate all those barriers to their education to break that cycle of poverty. The schools are a critical central location where this can happen. So we're concerned about these kids.
And I wholeheartedly hear that. Once again, I want to reiterate, this does not in any way eliminate the requirement that parents have their kids screened or that schools can host those screenings. So to say this is eliminating screenings at all, it is not. It's eliminating the requirement that a school be the one gathering data. It's all the bill
But then
does.
we're concerned about who will do that, particularly for those kids and those parents who don't have those other opportunities.
Perfect. So anybody in the back over there like to speak to the bill or move on around the corner?
Tom Chapman with the Iowa Catholic Conference, and we support the part of the bill that we have less than the paperwork requirements for the non-public schools. We appreciate the fact that the screening requirements are still there, and we're not at all interested in the staffing issues on that.
Thank you. Anyone else in the corner? All right.
Delaney Bounds with the Brain Injury Alliance of Iowa, and we oppose this bill. I want to emphasize that brain injuries and concussions are a leading cause of death and disability in Iowa children, and that there are between 10 and 26,000 concussions annually in Iowa. The schools currently operate from law by the state under the Return to Learn program, and that really requires collaboration between teachers, parents, and health professionals. And the elimination of the requirement that nurses be a part of this process would really hinder the support that teachers and students need to recover from concussions and manage other brain injuries during the school day.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Maddie Miller here on behalf of the Epilepsy Foundation. Thank you for allowing time for comments. And I know that you all received a letter in the email. Sorry, thank you. And I want to share that Epilepsy Foundation is strongly opposed to this bill. Certainly there are concerns regarding students with epilepsy. So those students, we know that the best form of treatment and maintenance for seizure disorders is to have regular maintenance of their medication. Now, a lot of schools have policies that require that school nurses be a part of that process of administrating the different medications, and so for that we have major concerns about reducing the number of, particularly that ratio of increasing the students that one nurse would be responsible for. And other concerns relating to making that part of the school choice, and we think that that's really necessary for those with chronic conditions and that student population. One quick fact for you all is that for students between the ages of 6 and 17, there was a recent study that shows from the CDC that shows that students with epilepsy are more likely to miss 11 or more days than their peers, which certainly has an impact on their education, and medication, and particularly staying on top of that is really important. So thank you.
Thanks, Fran. Craig?
Craig Patterson, I'm representing the Iowa Library Association. We're opposed to Section 13 of the bill, and I don't want to, in order to brevity of time, we do have a teacher librarian that's come in from across the state to make a statement. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, let's go right to her.
Recognize Lisa right now.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Lisa Beal. I'm from the Iowa City School District. I'm also the advocacy chair for the Iowa Association of School Librarians. And we're here today to oppose that particular part of the bill because the language of shall have a teacher librarian in all districts to may have will have a detrimental impact on how it affects the schools and the teachers and the students that are involved. And we just want to make sure that that language stays as is to protect us and protect our schools.
Thank you very much. All right, let's go back to our circle.
Bob Molkman with the Iowa Nurses Association, and we're concerned about a division on school nurses, and particularly the ratio of nurses. And in fact, we have 2 school nurses here, right over there, who came 3, from a ways to talk about this themselves and their own experience.
Well, would one of the nurses like to, right here. Perfect.
I'm Marianne Strawhacker. I have been employed by Central Iowa AEA for 25 years in the system. I've seen before the mandate and I've seen after the mandate. I can tell you that it's critical to have a school nurse in every single district every day. In the past, we had to have public health nurses come in periodically for students. I literally helped design contracts for other agencies to provide that at a much greater cost than employing a school nurse. The other thing I am is a special education nurse, so I deal with the students who have the most severe disabilities out there. And what I can tell you is that the cost of putting a one-to-one nurse with an individual student would pay for a nurse in a district for an entire year. And I've been on those IEP teams that have put a one-to-one nurse with a student. So I'm advocating that this bill not pass committee.
I'm Dean Schumann. I represent a group called Prevent Blindness Iowa. As you can imagine, they have some issues with Section 5 of the bill, which requires that the vision screenings that are done for children go to the Department of Education as opposed to the school districts. We're opposed to that really for two reasons, I think. One is that it makes sense to send the screening results directly to the schools and to the school nurses if they're there after this bill, to really empower them to have the knowledge of what their students' vision issues are, if any. And second, now the schools are required to kind of reach out to parents, as I understand it, with them receiving the results. And that's much easier to do for a school district to do locally with knowing the parents, having the relationship that they have with the kids, as opposed to the Department of Ed being involved. Some employee working over at the building over there, reaching out to somebody from 100 miles away, trying to get a screening result sent back to the Department of Ed. So we'd like to leave that responsibility with the schools. I understand your points that you were making, Senator, at the beginning about kind of empowering local school districts. I think leaving that with the schools is probably a better option.